Baby keeps looking in his pants. Then the mother calls 911. Dorothy thought she knew everything about her little son, Aiden, but on what seemed like an ordinary afternoon, he exhibited behavior that not only puzzled her, but would change her life forever. It was a quiet afternoon as Dorothy sat in the living room folding laundry. Her 3-year-old son, Aiden, was playing with his building blocks, humming a cheerful tune. The scene was peaceful, almost perfect. But then, suddenly, Aiden stopped. Dorothy looked up from her work, noticing that something was off. With a serious expression, Aiden stood in the middle of the room, tugged at his little pants, and looked inside. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just stared. Dorothy frowned but chuckled softly to herself. Kids and their quirks, she thought, turning her attention back to the laundry. But Aiden didn't move. Minutes passed and Dorothy began to feel uneasy. After almost half an hour, Aiden finally let go of his pants and returned to his building blocks as if nothing had happened. Strange, Dorothy murmured, shaking the thought away. It was probably nothing serious. The next day, the scene repeated itself at exactly the same time. 12:13 p.m. Again, Aiden tugged at his pants, peered inside, and froze. This time, Dorothy put her chores aside and watched him closely. She wanted to say something, but something held her back. When it happened again on the third day, Dorothy knew it couldn't be a coincidence. Dorothy began analyzing every detail in her mind. Why always at the same time? Was Aiden just curious? Was he in pain? But he showed no signs of discomfort. His eyes were clear, his smile as radiant as ever. And yet, this strange ritual haunted Dorothy. That evening, she shared her concerns with her friend Olivia. Olivia listened patiently and finally said, "What if it has something to do with your ex-husband?" Dorothy felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Could Michael really be involved in this? In that moment, Dorothy knew she had to get to the bottom of it, no matter what it would take. Dorothy couldn't shake Olivia's words from her mind. What if it has something to do with your ex-husband? The idea seemed absurd at first, but the more she thought about it, the more sense it made. A few weeks ago, Michael had sent her a threatening letter shortly after finding out about her new boyfriend. In the letter, he had written that he would make her life a living hell. Could this be his way of making good on that threat? Over the next few days, Dorothy spent her time observing Aiden and his behavior even more closely. Every day at precisely 12:13 p.m., he would tug at his pants and stare inside, as if in a trance. Dorothy felt a mix of fear and confusion. Why always the same time? Why that strange look in his eyes? It felt as though her son was trying to tell her something, but she couldn't decipher the message. Desperate, Dorothy started her own investigation. She inspected Aiden's clothes, every button, every seam, every hem. Could Michael have hidden some sort of listening device? She checked his shoes, his backpack, and even his diapers. But nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Aiden's clothing was as innocent as his smile. The uncertainty was driving Dorothy to the brink of madness. Was she being paranoid, or was there really something behind Aiden's behavior? She decided to take a drastic step. She called the police. Dorothy explained Aiden's strange behavior and her suspicion that Michael might be involved. The police took the situation seriously, especially since a child was involved. While one unit went to question Michael, another stayed with Dorothy to gather more information. When the officers returned, however, things became even more confusing. Michael had denied knowing anything about the situation. He seemed genuinely shocked by the accusations and insisted that he would never harm Dorothy or their son. Was he a masterful liar, or had Dorothy made a mistake? Dorothy was left with a feeling of deep uncertainty. What if Michael was truly innocent? But if he wasn't behind Aiden's behavior, then who or what was? The answer was closer than Dorothy realized, but for now, it remained just out of reach. Dorothy knew she needed answers, and fast. Her son's behavior wouldn't let her rest. With no other options left, she decided to take Aiden to a doctor. Maybe an expert could spot something she had overlooked. Dorothy scheduled the appointment for midday, exactly at 12:13 p.m., the time when Aiden always began his strange ritual. In the doctor's waiting room, Aiden was restless, but Dorothy promised him a reward in the form of his favorite lollipop if he behaved well. The doctor greeted them warmly and began the examination. At first, everything seemed normal. Aiden's reflexes, his skin, his overall health, everything was perfect. But Dorothy insisted that the doctor observe Aiden precisely at the critical time. As the clock struck 12:13 p.m., what Dorothy expected happened. Aiden stood up, tugged at his pants, and stared down. The doctor watched him closely, furrowed his brow, and then did something completely unexpected. He stood up and turned on the radio in the examination room. Dorothy was confused, but she told him her favorite station, and the doctor tuned it in. The moment the music started playing, Aiden's behavior shifted. His gaze dropped again, but this time he began to sway his feet lightly to the rhythm. Dorothy was stunned. The doctor observed Aiden closely and then smiled, nodding. "I think we found the answer," he said. The doctor explained to Dorothy that her son was simply trying to dance to the music. But since he didn't yet know how to dance, looking down seemed to be his way of expressing himself. Dorothy couldn't believe it. For weeks she had been worried, fearing the worst, and all her son wanted was to move to the music. Dorothy burst into laughter when she heard the truth. The doctor recommended enrolling Aiden in a toddler dance class to encourage his movements. Dorothy followed the advice, and soon Aiden began to dance properly. The strange ritual stopped, and Dorothy could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Sometimes, she realized, the simplest explanations are the truest, even if the journey to discovering them is filled with doubt and misunderstandings. Dorothy had spent weeks consumed by worry, only to discover that Aiden's strange behavior was nothing more than an expression of his childlike curiosity and joy for music. This journey reminded her that not everything is as dark as it seems at first, and that the answers are often closer than we think. With a little patience and the support of others, Dorothy had learned to provide her son with a new way to express himself, and seeing his smile in the process was the greatest reward of all. Did this story touch or surprise you? Let us know in the comments. Have you ever experienced a similar situation or heard a story that completely surprised you? We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends if you enjoyed the story. Subscribe to our channel to make sure you don't miss more exciting and heartwarming stories.